is Atiba Madyun. He is the president and founder of Party Politics US, a political activism campaign. He is also the author of the political thriller Saving Grace. Thank you so much for joining us, Atiba.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, dozens of bills have been introduced across the United States that critics say will restrict voting rights. Can you explain what is behind this push at this particular point in time as opposed to in years past?
Republicans around the country have for a long time been opposite of just about everything that seems to be in the good interest of the best interest of the country. And right now, in the midst of a pandemic, we see them being anti-vax and anti-mask, anti-climate. What we saw after the 2020 elections, when the former president was defeated in the election, we started to see Republican state legislatures around the country introduce and then pass voter suppression laws. And when I say suppression, I mean that these are laws that are meant to make it harder for people to vote. Some people think that it's directed more so to African American, Hispanic, and even poor Americans. So these efforts are not made to, as we talk about, for instance, on the front pages of on the stories that we keep hearing about Afghanistan and the fact that we didn't get a democracy the way that we wanted to there. Republicans are quick to criticize President Biden, but at the same time, what they are doing is damaging and destroying the democratic ideals of this country. So what we see today are activists all over the country who are speaking up and speaking out and actually want to tell Republicans to sit down, be quiet, let us do the work, because what Republicans are doing, honestly, is in an effort to make it more difficult for Americans to vote, and that actually is supposed to be the ideal that this country was made for.
Now, as you know, the House in Texas just passed a bill. So is this going to create some momentum? What are the chances of these kinds of bills passing in other states here in the U.S.?
We just saw in 2020, in November, we saw the largest turnout of voters in the history of this country. I wanted that to really sink in. There was the largest turnout of voters in the history of this country in the midst of a pandemic, when people are concerned about their lives and about getting sick. They came out to vote in force because our democratic ideals have been challenged, and they wanted to say enough. So 81 million people voted for President Joe Biden. Where we are now and what we're seeing happen in states like Texas is, on the ground, the Hispanic community in particular is growing exponentially. It is growing so much and so far in Texas that there are a lot of those Texas Republicans that are fearful that they will lose more elections. They will lose control of their state houses. They will lose control of those governor's mansions. And in turn, they will lose presidential elections. So what we're seeing is an effort to suppress the vote in order to win. And the problem the Republicans have right now is they're not offering any solutions. They're just offering ways to make it more difficult for citizens of this country to vote.
Let's talk about the federal level and the U.S. Congress. A bill to protect voting rights is also moving through the U.S. Congress, a very divided U.S. Congress at that. What are the chances of the bill passing on the federal level?
Well, the House just passed this along party lines, 219 to 212. What we see happening in the Senate, and what a lot of people may start to hear, or if they haven't already heard this term, filibuster. And the filibuster means that in order to pass legislation in the Senate, you need 60 or more votes. The Democrats do not have the 60 votes, they have 50. And there's one Republican, Lisa Murkowski, who has said that she would vote for this. So they only have 51 and they need another 9. In order to get this passed with a majority vote, what the United States senators, those Democrats, are going to have to do is find a way to carve out and to take out some of the provisions of the filibuster in order to move this forward. If they're not able to do that, then the bill will not pass in the Senate.